You're just in time. Okay, so I'm Pavel, work in Red Hat as an Agile practitioner. And today we are going to speak about learning a little bit. So let me ask you a question. So who of you studied or studies martial arts or learn how to play a music instrument? Just raise your hands. Quite a few. So can you keep the hands a little bit longer up? All right. Okay. So start. How long have you been doing it, and what you have been studying?
Piano for about 15 years.
15 years. Great. And at which point did you feel comfortable with improvising? No.
It was not terrible, but after a few years.
Okay. More hands. Please don't put your hands down, otherwise I will not remember who were doing. Okay, but on the other side. So what have you been doing and how long?
I did karate.
Okay.
For 5 years.
And what about improvisation? Did you get to the stage when you felt comfortable? Right. Okay. One more, Edith. One more. Okay, please.
I did the Agile. That's a martial art of drawing a sword.
Okay.
And technically, there are preset katas, but it's often about improvisation because it's about being ready to draw the sword
Yeah.
at any time. So it's about imaginary opponent and just improvising.
Okay. So how long you have been studying?
For a couple of years.
For a couple of years. Okay, thanks. Okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, so you see that it takes time for us to be at a certain level when we can improvise freely, when we feel comfortable with improvisation, right? First, we need to study the basics and repeat until it gets to the muscle memory and so on. And this is what this presentation is about. It's about ShuHaRi. And ShuHaRi is it's a description, for so to say, of the learning stages to achieve mastery in some kind of art. It's originated in Japan. It can be used in any kind of art. So not only in the martial arts like Aikido, but also, for example, in Go. You probably heard about the desktop game. And the Sado, which is the art of tea ceremony. So in any art, you can imagine, they say that there are the 3 stages which you need to go through in order to achieve mastery. The first stage, Shu, is the first stage when you follow the instruction of your master. You need to repeat the basics so that it will get to the muscle memory, and you need to understand the principles. Then you can get to the second stage, when you feel comfortable enough that you can change some of the practices so that they fit your own personal style and personal, situation better. You're making the technique your own. It's called digression. And the third stage is when you're grasping the spirit of the art completely. Someone says that it's that your mind and the spirit of the art is the same. You are not feeling any boundaries of the technique. You are becoming a master of your own style. You separate from the teachings of the master. So you have these 3 stages, Shu, Ha, and Ri. Okay. Important is to emphasize that it's a path. There is, of course, it's not about staying in one particular stage. It's going to be, first stage, second stage, third stage. The goal is to reach the Ri, the master, when you are not feeling bounded by any kind of a rule. You maybe know that Bruce Lee, he described this in one of those famous talks as a state of being shapeless, formless, like water. When you, according to the situation you are in, you shape your doing, your art, so that it fits into the particular situation. It's not only about the perception from the apprentice, it's also about the perception from the master. As well as the apprentice should know that there are these 3 mental stages he or she needs to go through. The master needs to know this as well. and accordingly adjust the way of approaching the apprentice. Usually, you probably know, in the first stage, the master is more as a teacher. You are obeying the instructions as he or she says. Then he became or she became a mentor when it's more about the correcting the mistakes you are doing. Then more of a coach when the technical level of the apprentice is high enough, but the master is here to help him discover his potential. And later on, in the third stage, ShuHaRi, he became or she became a partner, more of a master. But what happens when we do not have a master? Right. It can be a problem, because then we can miss some of the basic principles and we do the things but in the wrong way, which may be or may not be a problem, but usually it doesn't help us with the progress. And a question for you: what do you think when you skip? What will happen when you skip the first stage? When you try to skip the first stage, Shu, and you would like to try go to Ha and Ri? What do you think would happen?
You'll hurt yourself.
Yeah, it can happen.
Have some really bad consequences of it. Well, if it becomes a habit of not skipping Shu, that he's not following someone, not following the path, then you could be like the person who is trying something but always putting that thing, or not completing anything. So.
Right. Good. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. If you are skipping the foundation, it's not a good thing. I mean, you don't need me. I mean, you know everything. I will just go through it, but it's exactly the same. So yeah. So when we are trying to change something and we do not understand the fundamental principles and basics, we usually cannot comprehend the consequences of the change. And then we are like trying to, hunt a rabbit, but he's always somewhere around away because we don't know what we are changing. And as you said, usually, especially when we are doing martial arts, we can hurt ourselves or hurt the others because we don't understand what we are doing. And eventually, when the things are getting more complicated, the system collapses because we don't have any foundation to build on. Okay, so how all this is connected to Agile, you may ask. So it is very much because maybe some of you used or using Scrum. And at the beginning of the Scrum guide, which is with official description of the rules of the Scrum, it's written that Scrum is simple to understand, but it's difficult to master. The Scrum has very few rules, which are easy to explain. But when you start doing it, it's not that easy as you may think. And you need to go through the basic stage to learn, to repeat, so that you understand why you are doing. I'm sorry. There are principles behind these rules, and when you are not following them, when you are skipping them, you are missing something. There are always reasons why the things are in a certain way, right? And Scrum is not different. Oh, this is just, I borrowed this from Dilbert. This is just underlying the message. Okay. So, who of you had an experience with Scrum? Raise your hand. Like half of the people. No. Okay. So, can you give me some example what we might do wrong when we are doing Scrum?
We don't explain Scrum to new team members.
That's true. That would be a mistake, I guess. Yes. Anything else? Can you repeat? Sorry. Okay. Like leaving them alone? Is that what you mean? Okay. Yeah, okay. Any other suggestions?
We tell them how to do Scrum.
We what?
We tell them how to do Scrum. We tell them what we want them to do and let them do it.
That's a little bit deeper thought, I would say. But yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Everything is Scrum, not what Scrum is.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so what I mean here is a little bit different. is that sometimes when the teams perform Scrum, they forget some stuff. They think maybe it's not necessary for them, right? Maybe it's not, maybe it's not, maybe it is, but maybe they didn't even try to do it. So usually it happens that we, for example, do not do stand-up. The stand-up is one of the fundamental stuff in the Scrum because it provides the checkpoint for the team to track when they are in the progress of the sprint. And if you are not having that check, it would be very difficult to inspect and adapt, which is like the course of the Scrum. Yeah.
People don't have in stock.
Well, it depends how you do the stand-up. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, eventually we will speak about it. You need to find your own style, how to do it for your good. But not to have that at all, maybe it's not the right thing. The second, maybe some teams don't do retrospection, so they are not having the possibility to iteratively learn about themselves, about the work, which is again one of the cores of the iterative framework such as Scrum. So when you do not do this, you are missing an essential part, and you are not really taking advantage of them. Sometimes we do them, but we don't do actually right. So, for example, what I saw a lot of times is that the teams do review, but they do only the demonstration part. They call it demo. They call it demonstration. And demonstration is a very important part of the review, but it's not, unfortunately, the reason why we are doing the review. We are doing the review to get feedback on our work so that we can adapt our work in the future. And if we are skipping the feedback, then I don't know why we are demonstrating, right, in the first place. What is also quite often that we do a stand-up for a long time. So we misconcept the reason the stand-up is for maybe solving the problem. It's not about solving the problems. It's about to have the checkpoint to see where we are. Or sometimes we do not consider stand-up or do stand-up as a collaborating thing when it's for the team to collaborate and plan for the next 24 hours or whatever period of time. But we approach it as a reporting to someone, maybe to Scrum Master or somewhere else. It's not the point. So we do stuff, but we are not doing it right. And another thing, we are not enforcing the change, which is very important. So we do not experiment, okay? So we do the things one way, and we are not trying to improve, to maybe change the fragmency of some of the stuff, which may fit us better. I mean, okay, that team is doing it that way. It's no reason for us not to experiment with our own way how to do things, right? And then we're following blindly and not really improving. And if you read about the Scrum, it's about the continuous improvement. It's one of the major stuff. Okay, so what is the takeaway from this short talk? So first, don't forget to learn the basics and understand the basic principle. Whatever you do, otherwise your path would be much, much harder, much, much longer, and maybe you will not even get in the end. It's easier with the master, especially with the Scrum Master, of course. And do not forget to digress at the right time. The goal is not to stay following the rules, but to try your own way, how you can do the things for you better. And ultimately, create your own style. There are many teams which they are agile, but they are not using Scrum, they are not using Kanban, they are using the things which make sense for them. Of course, most likely they didn't start there. It was a journey to become there. But once they were there, everything suddenly makes sense for them. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention. And please, if you have some questions. Now it's your time.
So, how do you encourage from a team that has achieved a really good shoot?
So most likely, at least that's my perception, right? So you are in a shoe and everything is not, it's nothing, there is nothing terrible happening. Everything sort of works. But usually you have the feeling that it's kind of, I don't know how to say, like this wheel, something is not fitting right. And when we are discussing what is like bothering us, maybe it's not the perfect fit, always suggest an experiment. You don't know if this will help or if this not will help. That's okay, I don't know either. Let's try for a month, for 2 weeks, whatever, and just see if this is something for us better or it's not. The experimenting, every time, at least some experiment, it's a great way to start making things hard for you. Yeah. Okay, Marek, you want to say?
Yeah, so during the first phase, is it mandatory to follow rules strictly, or is even there some delay?
So the rules, the fundamental thing is that when there is a rule, you need to understand why there is that rule, right? That's what I would think. So when you start to learn something, like I was learning bass guitar as well and whatever, I would say yes. At least at a certain point, you need to have this period of time when you try that rule. There is the rule for that reason. You don't need to like it, but try. There is a reason why there is that rule. And if you just skip the rule without even trying that, for me it's like, okay, the people who were doing this before, they don't know what they are doing. Or maybe they were, no. I really recommend every rule to try. I understand that it's not easy, especially when you have already established way of working and suddenly a bunch of rules come to it, right? And then you need to adjust and you don't know which rules to follow. So maybe the Scrum is not the right thing for you. Not for you, but for you, right? The Kanban is much more easier in this way because you always describe the way of work you are having, not some new one. But when someone entity agrees that we would like to do Scrum, I really suggest to do it, with all the stuff first at least, and then you see. Yeah.
So is Scrum one size fits all methodology? Because I'm thinking in a way we use Scrum today, but maybe is it some methodology that comes out of the needs of today, or why this methodology was not used in the 70s or in the 60s, for example?
It's a difficult question. There are two questions. So is there any other, I would say, framework, not methodology? It's like there is a boundary, you can do whatever you like inside, but okay. And then the second question, why it was not used earlier, right?
Yeah.
So as far as I know, the reason why the Scrum became is because at the 70s and before, there were these fundamental problems with not getting the feedback fast enough, and everything was changing quite rapidly. And the way how the things were done before, which were inherited from the industrial age, was just outdated. So they were looking for something different. And Scrum, it was described by two people. And if they were here, they would be probably saying, other stuff than I do, maybe better. But the Scrum is the best for when you have a closed entity, small dependencies, some things which you would like to deliver. In open source, it's much more complicated than this. So maybe the Scrum is really not the good framework. I don't know. But there are other frameworks, and you don't need to use any framework if you don't like. You just need to understand the advantage of the iteration and getting feedback fast and all this stuff. Did it answer the question? Or? Okay. And the second, it was inside. So I think the 70s, 60s, it was, and it's still because there is a really strong school of the Taylorism, of the industrial age, how you perceive the worker, how you perceive things. And I don't know how much actually people are doing Agile in our industry. There are definitely large people who are trying to do Agile, or they say they're doing Agile. But how truly we are Agile, it's another thing. We are still not there, I think. It will be a long time.
Just to add to this, Pavel said Agile is compiling set of practices which are helping the continuously developing environment
Okay.
to develop faster and settle strong, much better the working style between the different participants in the project.
Okay.
So, for example, in the Egyptian Empire, they were trying Agile because they were always asking, what's wrong? Why doesn't that work? Why does this work? Can we try something else? Can we try practices from other empires or whatever? And these are all ancient practices which are pretty much today organized in a framework.
Yeah.
Agile, Scrum, XP,
Mm-hmm.
Kanban, or whatever. They were still having lists of requirements which they were fulfilling. They were still having these kind of retrospectives when they were gathering together and analyzing how they finished or what they will do during the day.
Yeah.
So these are, for example, these stand-up meetings. But they were not calling them stand-up.
Yeah, sure.
But they were still playing these approaches. During the 70s, I still very much applied such practices. For example, the continuous improvement chapter from I completely applies these kind of retrospectives approach. Or the client-first framework developed with some company, continuously assessing their work and their results through the voice of the customers. It's being applied, but now it's framed.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I'm sure that it's nothing new, right, in Agile. I mean, and it shouldn't be, because when you... Okay, out of the time, sorry. It's for kind of a common sense, but maybe we kind of forget about something at some... Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm sorry, it's out of the time. Thank you very much for you. Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me just grab the... No.
Are you the session chair?
Yeah. Hi,
Mine is the next up. I'm Aditya.
Yes, nice to meet
I'm just the
you. Yeah.
No, still hi. I'm Aditya.